I come from, in the fact being that, I have learned that if you willingly accept others and try your best not to judge them, then that in turn is a love that is unconditional, because you're fully accepting them from your heart to theirs, and you're not having any expectation in particular, no hidden agendas or no expectations that they're going to do a specific thing, or that they're going to do this kind of, and this is how the best way to go into a relationship, of course, is because if you have no expectations, then it is just a joyful love that the two of you share, and you build a future from that point forward. So that was my basic upbringing. I mean, yes, I had religious overtones because I was introduced to the Catholic Church, and I had other churches involved in my upbringing, and the whole crux of it was that, we were to love God and love one another, and that's the whole theme of things. Now, of course, if you love God and use God as an example, the mainstay being unconditional love, then of course in your daily life that unconditional love is supposed to be shared with all that you come in contact with. And of course, with life as it is, that's not always the easiest thing to do. I mean, people might make you mad, people make you aggravated, people will hurt you sometimes, and all of these kind of things, and yet you're to love them regardless, because love has the power to raise them spiritually and mentally and emotionally, so that they see that what they're doing, and once they've realized it, they then in turn are brought more into love per se. So that's where I'm coming from, TJ. Hello?
Okay, I had done. Yeah. Okay, I apologize. I was delayed. I was trying Ken one more time, but then I said, I want to wake him up. If he's taking his Sunday nap at 79, he deserves it. He'll be 80 next year. Well, yes, God, the church and loved ones was part of my life, because my parents had me christened, sprinkling. I guess it's some ritual that we have. I don't know if all the churches still do it, but I'm sure the Catholic Church still does it. But I wasn't Catholic. I was ordained or christened for the first time into the church, or brought into the church, apparently through ritual in front of the culture, community, church, whatever you want to call it, in a big Baptist church in Monroe, Louisiana. So I had a lot of cards, and I was the first child in a long time, I guess, in my family, because all my her mother only had a boy and a girl. So at that level, the grandma had 12 children. Mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, because we had 5 generations alive, because I got married so young, and we had 5 generations before my great-grandmother passed. But we were a maternal family, and I grew up knowing that life was about church, and then by 8 we were sprinkled, baptized, which I think Pastor Ken discussed last week. If you would like to go back and listen, Pastor Ken Johnston, it's on our archives here on blogtalkradio.com. I've got them all the way back to 2012 for all you historians, or if you have time to listen to learn about people you may like, including Pastor Rickert. Actually, he goes by Pastor Rich in my life, but Pastor Rick, R-I-C-K, online with our ACO Club, Ascension Cosmos Oracles, Ascension Church Ohana, and American Communication Online. We started the ACO brand, which I figured out a long time ago that branding was important on the internet, but we have to separate because of all churches, religions, and the Baptist Church. But we did model for our articles and bylaws, if anyone's interested. We have those up, too, on our American Communication Online and Theresa J Morris Ministries. And we're doing our best to move everyone that can't go to a brick and mortar or do not want to go sit in a brick and mortar And I have to admit, those pews when I was growing up were pretty hard. But these days, it looks like from what I can see on television evangelism, I've always had a lot of friends that love Joyce Myers, and I actually enjoy her too. And my daughter did. So, but these are really huge, huge places she goes. I don't know if I really don't. I don't know if she has Joyce Myers Ministries and .org too. But I don't know if she travels or what. But I know around the world, I've had people from other countries compare me to Joyce Myers, and I was very flattered in emails. So, also, Joel Osborne has a great following, huge, and he took over his father's church in Texas, where I used to live, and very huge in Houston, and they were using an arena that used to be when I was growing up in Houston. We moved from Monroe to Houston when I was 11, 12, or 9th grade, and I hope these dogs, next door he's got 3 little Pomeranians. But some people's air conditions are going around here, Richard, so that's why they're knocking on the door. But I told them they could come in and be on the show. At least they could be cool. But they're like, oh, no, I don't want. I said, but it's about love. Come tell us about it. Oh, no, I don't want to be on your show. So I'm going to have to get a live recording and put on the door. And also to keep Coco from barking. But the Southern Baptist Church was what I only knew until my mother divorced my father, who was a deacon in the church of, well, actually from the time the big one, I mean, it was huge too growing up. I mean, it was just gigantic, and for Monroe, but it was a very old town. But then when we moved, my father and mother, when they were divorcing, mother took us and dad took us to Trinity Baptist. And from there, Trinity Baptist is where mother and dad divorced, and mother moved us to Houston. And she married her boss, and coming up in computer age, he was a CPA, and she was working for him at Owen Matheson. And I don't know the detail on love one another when that happens, folks, but now there's so many children go through that. And I have to admit, it was hard for me when people split, but I'm not opposed to not sharing it. It's a story that happened to me, and my children felt it too. When my husband and I were both government contractors, and we divorced. So I guess it's more common. It's a contract, but it's the love one another that holds the bonds that really makes matrimony possible. And the church plays an important role, because in our family, my daughter and I had a family that prays together, stays together. And nowadays, so many people poo-poo praying or sending your thoughts to God or higher source or power, the higher power that we read about. Even in the old fire clay tablets, a lot of you may not know, because back in the Roman times, the church kept out a lot of books before Constantine chose which ones would go in the German Gutenberg that went to print and press for the first time in Germany. And so back in the day, they had cuneiform. They actually had a way to communicate the old ways of the world, and those from the heavens came. And those that were mighty powerful gods, or God, as we like to think, because of the way we were brought up in our world religions, was Abrahamic faith, which was Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, and they all started from the same Abraham, Isaac story in the Bible with Noah and Moses. So when we talk about church, people in the United States, most of them will either be Jewish, Catholic, Protestant, or now Muslims, all Abrahamic faith, meaning they came from the family of Abraham. So just keep that in mind, which really was shocking when you go back and study all the world religions, which I strongly suggest everybody do now that it's right there at your fingertips on the internet in our cyberspace culture community. However, if you're hearing our voices, Pastor Richard T. Knight, Richard Thomas, he's got a beautiful name, Sir Richard of the Round Table, and we've got a new company, a table deal here, because we handle so many different niche genres. Even on Sunday, we'll go into several topics, but ours is based on the fact that we know there is a God, a higher power. Whether you want to believe it or not, it's up to you. Faith is based on belief. But I'll tell you what really, when my parents split up, that kept me going. I didn't go to church after they split up for a while. My sister did, Catholic. She wanted to be Catholic, but Mother was no circumstances, because Mother, affected by Hitler, her grandfather that married her, let's see, was it her grandfather? Yes, because her dad and mother had divorced. Bolton's had divorced. He was a police officer and a truck driver. No, but he was driving a truck when he was killed. A big logging came through the glass on the back of his rig and I guess beheaded him somehow. And anyway, that was then. And my grandmother never married, so I never had a grandfather after that, and I was only 4 or 5 because Mother bought a house. I may have not even been that old, because I remember 2 years old living near my grandmother, Thurmond, Sarah Elizabeth Thurmond in West Monroe, Louisiana, on North 7th Street. It used to be New Natchitoches Road, North 7th. I don't know what it is now because they changed things up so much. But that's when we got the Baptist behind us. And then oddly, when Mother had moved us and we moved over into NASA land, or where my boyfriend's father went to Grumman and NASA, and my husband at that time, he was going to James Madison High. He was a senior, a trumpet player, the president of the band, and I was a majorette. And we fell in love then. I know this is about love one another and love stories today, or how to love one another. But there is all kinds of love, and there's nothing better than when you're a teenager and those hormones, pheromones, whatever you want to call them, hit, and there's not a lot you can do about it because it's your first feeling. And I didn't have boyfriend. We called each other boyfriend and girlfriend in elementary school and junior high, but it was puppy love. It wasn't like real love. It was, you had a crush, or it was just different. You didn't kiss or do any of that, at least when I was growing up in the 50s. Now, in the 60s, it was NASA days, going to moon, and, early 60s, that's what we were talking about with Kennedy, and November in Dallas when we lost President Kennedy. But it really affected my whole world and my whole family. And I wanted to go to space, but I was a girl. And so my husband worked at NASA for Chris Kraft at NASA during the Vietnam War. So while we were going to high school, twirling baton, playing trumpet, he became a Union Local 65 member and got paid $25 an hour minimum wage, or what that was back then. That was a lot of money. It seemed like it anyway, much more than he was earning at NASA, because he would, we needed it all then because we were starting to grow our family. We had 4 little children, 4 little girls together. And so that explains the love. But he and I had that teenage first love in high school. His name was Stephen Lee Parrish, and he worked as a government directly for NASA, so he was cleared and I was cleared. And we were both recruited out of a James Bond movie, as we'd been going almost 2 years when we got married to steady. When you're a teenager and you don't do anything, and I didn't know anything, he taught me. So he was my first love. And so there's that passion that teenagers can have during that time, 15 to 21, because the brain doesn't really grow to an extent that we now understand, at least till 21 or 22, to understand all the emotional hormone imbalances while you're graduating, up-leveling in your own mind. But that was a very interesting time for me, and I needed church again. So I had a next-door neighbor that was a Latter-day Saint, and LDS. And so she introduced me to that. We couldn't drink, smoke, or drugs.